Good, you got it for you. All right, so we are on page Nun Aleph, the bottom third of the page, and the line begins with the word Mimenu. You all have it? Yeah? We have to notice how much effort the Rebbe takes into explaining the principle that even though there is a Helem, but the Helem is not a true Helem. It's not a true Helem, and the meaning, not a true Helem, the ultimate meaning of that is that this Helem does not hold you back, does not preclude, does not make it impossible to go back to the source. Like the Oyer Choizer. The Oyer Choizer, like the ball that springs back to the hand of the one who threw it. So even though it's a Helem, but this Helem is not truly disconnecting and malim, making a break between the source and that which is being given. So we pointed out in the case of the Oyer Choizer, when you throw the ball, it jumps back. Where is it jumping back to? To the source where it came from. Back into the hand of the thrower. And sometimes you'll learn that actually in Oyer Choizer there's a deeper power than even in Oyer Yosher. So far, do I have you with me?
Yeah, how deeper power by
Oyer Choizer has more, but you understand the terminology, right? Oyer Yosher means that light which is coming from the source, it's coming away. So therefore that, the emphasis, and in Oyer Yosher is the Oyer. Like the hand is throwing, and then the ball should fly. It's not the power of the hand that it's about, and it's not the power of the person, it is the flight of the ball that you're creating. Right? It's just the koyach. Just the koyach. The Oyer Choizer, where is it coming back from? To the source of the koyach. The Oyer Choizer is aiming at the source. Oyer Choizer is not trying to create another flight of the ball. He wants to come back to the source. That's why it's flying. So this is a mashal for the true union of Oyer Choizer and Oyer. On the true union of Oyer Yosher and Oyer Choizer. Oyer Yosher is how one understands an Indian. Normally, you learn something, you understand what you say. Then you come to a point. When you come to a point where you see that you're not really grasping it, and you want to get the full grasp of this Indian, and you're bothered by the fact that you're not grasping it, then you want to go back to the source. Why can't I understand it? This is Oyer Choizer. So then, it's not enough that you're being explained again, al pi seichel. It's not enough. It doesn't hit me, it doesn't make sense. It makes sense al pi seichel, but it doesn't really have significance until you get the real essence of it. The essence is from the source. So through this seichel, you start going back to the essence. Like we spoke yesterday about Avraham Avinu, a little bit. The other day we spoke more deeply. Avraham Avinu recognized that the world is actually a godly creation. And what did this propel him to do? That he is no longer interested in the creation, he's interested in God himself. That's the real thing. You follow what I'm saying? He started off in saying, what is this creation about? Once he realized it, and he wants to go to the real thing, to the essence, to the source. He started saying, this world is not made for itself, it's made to serve God and to reveal God in it. That's what the world is about.
When the person study about something, so or yourself when he's understanding, but then he want to go deeper. He said the source of this, what he's understanding is for him.
This is what the Rebbe is explaining to us, that the Helen is not a true Helen. And he explains the real reason why that the Helen is not a true Helen is because the mashpia or milmailo, Hashem, from Hashem's perspective, you see everything in the matter. Just like the mashpia, the teacher, sees everything in the oir mitzumtzum, in the limited seichel. But therefore, it means that in this limited seichel is hidden the whole essence of the seichel harav, and the Talmud can now go back and draw from this the seichel harav. And it's not a steer at all. Okay, this is what we're struggling with and explaining more and more this Indian. You okay, Benjamin? Huh? You with me? Okay, now we're saying what? Veho'inyan. Veho'inyan, the general inyan of this is, as we said, that the Shem Elikim is master on the Shem Havaya, but it's not a real Hester. How is that actually, so to speak, express itself? The healing. You have to understand like this. Mishem Havaya Atzmoi Loi Hoyo Efsher Liyesh Hishavas Ho'ilamis. From the Shem Havaya itself, it was not possible that there should be his Havas Ho'ilamis. The worlds cannot come from Shem Havaya. Why is that? Shaharei, since that, Hu Bibchinas Bli Gvul Kuli, Canal. Because the Shem Havaya is Bibchinas Bli Gvul. I think we started yesterday talking about this a little bit. And I would like you, as much as possible, to understand this concept. It's Bibchinas Bli Gvul. What is so different between Bli Gvul and world?
Not comparable, totally different.
Okay, this is the same thing. Is it the same thing as saying that an apple tree will not produce pears?
Not produce what?
Pears. Grapes. Yabliki and what a pear is? What kind of a pear is?
Vinograd?
No, vinograd is grapes. Pear, you know what a pear is? It looks like an apple a little bit. It's a longer. Grusha, right. An apple tree will not produce grusha. So it's the same thing as saying Bli Gvul cannot produce a world.
This fruits, but this different kind of fruit. Bli Gvul and Gvul is like they cannot recognize one another. Gvul cannot understand Bli Gvul and Bli Gvul cannot understand Gvul. totally different category.
All right, all right. Is it the same thing that you cannot plant a tree in the ocean?
I don't think you can compare it even. It's like nothing.
I'm not asking you to compare. I'm asking, is the concept the same? Is it the concept the same? You're trying to say they're two different things. Okay, they're two different things. So apples and pears are also different things. And no apple tree will never produce a pear. It won't. Is it the same thing when you say that Bechinas Bli Gvul, Hashem Havai is Bechinas Bli Gvul, and you can't create, worlds cannot be created from Hashem Havai? Is it the same thing? Or is it a similar concept?
No, we learned that it's only through the Tzimtzumim Western made it possible that the world would be a befitting place. But the example of the changing the nature and these trees wouldn't bring another type of fruit or planting the ocean, this kind, and the Teva itself is obviously not going to change. But the Chatchila, obviously, it's coming from Eberster within our way of thinking. It's out of reach. It's Bligvur, but that's.
So I'm saying you have to understand, like me, I should understand, because this concept, Bechinas Bli Gvul, is a necessity to understand the principle of Misei Hashem, God. Baruch Atah Hashem. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu. What is meant by that? These are not just plain words. These are very meaningful words, and this is what gives us a real sense of life, because there is Hashem. What's Hashem? There was the Rebbe writes, the Frierdiker Rebbe writes, there's a long letter that the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote to his daughter. And in this letter, it's a very long letter, it describes many different episodes by great Chachamim, Misnagdesher, who didn't learn Chassidus. And in one point he describes when this great big Talmid Chacham, who was really a scholar in Gemara, in Torah, and he was describing how he prepares himself to daven. To daven, you have to have Yiras Hashem, right? You have to have Yiras Hashem. So how does he prepare himself to daven? He says he stands there in front of his stand, in front of the Yamut, and he imagines a huge buffalo standing and looking at him. And the more he imagines the buffalo, the more scared he becomes. And he becomes so scared. And this gives him the yira, and this prepares him for davening. So, Bli Gvul, Hashem Havai, is that just a huge buffalo? What is meant by this?
In which context he wrote it to his daughter?
Huh?
In which context he wrote it to his daughter? Obviously, it's not a source that he would teach by himself.
No. He wrote it in the context that this is not meaningful. Not that it's meaningful. Yet he was pointing out, discussing, of course not. it's important that we understand this. The world is Gvul and Shem Havaya is Bli Gvul. What does that mean? It means like this. The world, everything in the world is dependent on something else. This tabletop, the board, has to be supported by 4 legs. And if it's not supported, it will fall down. It doesn't hold up itself. It has to be held up. The floor has to be supported by beams that hold the floor up. The beams are supported by the wall of the house. The wall of the house is supported by the foundation. Everything is a structured existence. Nothing is true on its own. Why? Because everything is a Baal Gvul. A Baal Gvul cannot exist independently. A Baal Gvul has to be supported by another Baal Gvul, by another Baal Gvul. If a person is a Baal Gvul, and therefore he has to eat. And if he doesn't eat, he can't survive. He has to be supported. Doesn't have his own presence. Doesn't exist independently. Domin, you with me? Are you hear me? You hear me? Why are you afraid to look at me? Why are you afraid to look? No, I'm not learning the words. I'm trying to explain the words. Those mean world. World is a whole structure. And without the structure, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist on its own. Govoya me'al govoya shomer. That's what it says in the Pasuk. And the whole world structure of the world is that there is one layer on top of the other layer on top of the other layer. Like onions, onion layers. One layer is holding up the other. The earth is in the middle of space. How is it held up? It's held up by outer space. And this other space is held up by outer space. Nothing is true on its own. This is the Gvul. This is world. Shem Havaya is Bli Gvul, which means it is a truth that is true in and of itself. It's a godliness. So when you speak from the perspective of Shem Havaya, you cannot speak in terms of one thing being dependent on something else. Shem Havaya can relate only to things that are true, completely true on their own. Unlimited truth. Not circumstantial truth. You understand? Under these circumstances, this is true. This board is now in the air. Why? Because the legs hold it up. Take the legs away, the board will fall down. So it's not objective. It's not an absolute truth. It's circumstantial truth. Shem Havaya is an absolute reality. It's Bli Gvul. Bli Gvul means that it doesn't need any support. It's true on its own. These two, this is where it's impossible. Because the whole definition of existence, the way Shem Havaya defines it and the way world defines it are different definitions. It's not like an apple and a pear. Both exist, but they're different things. The very definition of existence is different. From the perspective of Shem Havaya, the world doesn't exist. It's not a real existence. And therefore, world cannot come from Shem Havaya. You understand? The concept. All right. So this is what he says. Shem Havaya Atzmei Lehoya Efshel Yis Yisamas Choshis Shem Bli Gvul. Alidei Shem Elikim, but then Alidei Shem Elikim, through the effect of the Shem Elikim, Nimshach u'mizgale ha'oy the Shem Havaya, then the oy the Shem Havaya is drawn and reveals itself bo olamis in the world, lahavoisem u'lahachayosem, to create them and to give them sustenance, life. The Shem Elikim is essentially taking the oir, the truth, and the Bli Gvul of the Shem Havaya, and it's breaking it down. It's breaking it down in smaller pieces. Like we say, there is Chochma, there is Bina, there is Das. For Shem Havaya, there is a truth. Actually, Shem Havaya also there is Chochem, Bina, V'das, but in Shem Elikim there is Dibur, there's Machshava, Dibur, U'mais, which makes it into a concrete Metzias. For Shem Elikim takes the oil of Shem Havaya and brings it to a world level. Okay.
So in Shem Havaya, Chochma, Bina, it's everything one. It's like in Elohim, like the concept.
Chochma, Bina, Shem Havaya, there is also Chochma, Bina, but it's not at the level of Machshava. And it's a little bit deep to go into it, but I just want to explain to you what the Shem Elikim is. We discussed the other day. I give you a simple mashal of a concept and then the actualization of the concept. Like I said, set this room up for a class. Set this room up for a class. In this concept for a class, there are no exact divisions. Set it up for a class. So it should be convenient for the class. Then comes the seichel, and you start thinking, okay, how would it be convenient to set it up? Put this table like this table like this table like this bench like this, and set it up. This setup and this breaking it down into details, this is like the Shem Elikim. This is like in Machshava, Dibur, U'mais. When you tell somebody, set it up for a class, he's never seen a class, he doesn't know what you're talking about. How do you set it up? But if you tell somebody, put this table here, he knows what to do. You understand? This is the Shem Elokim aspect. But you have to understand that when you tell him, set up this table like this and this table like this, even though you're telling him, put up the tables, but what's behind it? The idea of setting it up for a class. So the real thing that is being executed, what's being accomplished here, is the idea. It's the idea that's guiding and illuminating this whole setup. Although you can't come straight from the idea, you have to break it down into action. Into a metzias. This is called Shem Elokim. This is what world is. World is truly representative of godliness. But it's a representative of godliness at a very low level. But the fact is, it's all represented on it. There is apple trees, there is pear trees, there is grapes, there is the earth, there is the sky, there is the sun, there is the moon. All of these things together, they're all coming from a godly perception, a godly definition of world, of existence. But they are defined individually. And altogether, they bring out the godly light into the world. And at the same time, each thing individually also brings out the godly light into the world. Okay? The Hare, for in truth, okay, so we're saying that the Shem Elokim brings the oil of Shem Havaya into the world. Why do we say that the Shem Elokim brings the oil of Shem Havaya into the world? He explains, because HaYizhav was who Mishem Havaya Kanaf. Because the Yizhav was the actual koyach, the actual power to create, is from the Shem Havaya. The power to create of the Shem Havaya, and this we have to explain now. The Hagam Diksiv, Breish is Bor Elokim. For although it says in the Pasuk that Elokim created the world, Breish is Bor Elokim, Hainu, which means to say, Shen Yizhavu, Alidei Shem Elokim. When it says Elokim, it doesn't mean the Shem Elokim itself created it. It means it came to Yizhavus through the Shem Elokim. Alidei Shem Elokim. Through the Shem Elokim. Avo but Guf ve'etzem ha'yizhavus. But the essence of Yizhavus itself, the very power of the that's involved in his havus, hu mishem havaya dafko. It is only from Shem Havaya. The Yizhavus itself is from Shem Havaya, but it came through the Shem Elokim. Without the Shem Elokim, the Yizhavus of the world would never come about from Shem Havaya.
So Shem Elokim don't have nothing by his own. He's only changed the Shem Havaya.
Right. He's only concealing Shem Havaya and allowing it to come out in limited forms. Okay? There's much to speak on this. But we have to limit, I have to limit myself to try to explain what it says. If you have any questions, you're welcome. You know what I'm saying? I want to hear questions. I want to hear how well we understand this. But not just questions out of the blue. Questions from what we're learning. But I want that we should understand this thing, and that Shem Havaya is Bli Gvul, but this is the real Koyach Mizamus. Just like in a human being, by a person. You have the hand that is able to bang on the nail and build something. The foot is able to walk. The mouth is able to speak. The mind is able, in machshava, in the thought, you're able to think. And when you talk about thought, speech, and deed, this is what makes things happen. But do they make it happen on their own? Does the thought create the thought? Does the speech create the speech? Does the hand create the action? Of course not. What creates the action is a concept deep down in one's mind, in one's seichel, that motivates this entire process. But that seichel itself could not make it happen on a orderly fashion. And in order to make it happen, it has to go through machshava divrei ma'aseh. It has to be broken down. It has to be defined specifically on the worldly level. The way it is in concept, it's not a worldly level. This is what you want. That's like I said all the time. I want this cup to be here. That is not going to move the cup. Because this is at a different level than the cup. I can imagine that this is over here. It fits to be there. But that fits to be there is not going to move the cup. In order to move the cup, I have to put my hand out and move it. On the other hand, when my hand is put out and moves it, what motivated the hand? The seichel. That this is where it belongs. Got it? V'zehu da'havaya hu loshem mahava. This is the reason that havaya is loshem mahava. Havaya is related to the word mehava, creator. Because the real creator is the Shem Havaya. The real creator is Shem Havaya. It seems now that the Rebbe brings down the word Havaya is Loshen Mahava, so let us focus in on the name itself, Havaya and Elokim. Havaya, it says Loshen Mahava, and the word Havaya, actually the word as a word means existence. Something that exists. What does the word Elokim mean? Power, strength, rulership. So the real source of everything is from Havaya, because this is the real existence. But how does it come into being, into the creation, to the Shem Elokim? That disseminates it and creates a world of, as a master that creates in the world. Just like you have a business. And the business is owned by a CEO. It's called Chief Executive Officer. In other words, it's owned by the president. It's owned by the people that invested their money in the business. But who actually runs the business? The ones who know how to make it happen. The managers. They tell each person what to do. On what basis? How do they know what to do? The boss, the CEO tells them, I want to go to create this kind of a business. And the manager knows how to take it down into the practical level. But where does he get his strength from? From the CEO. Okay. The canal, and as we explained before, that at the point that Shem Havaya is Lo Shem Mahava, that the actual koyach of creation is from Shem Havaya. As we explained before, and this is a very deep statement, the whole Pa'ula, that any action, hu be his galus hapoyel dafke, it is when there is a his galus hapoyel, when there is a gilui, an expression and revelation of the poil, of the force that acts. V'hainu Shem Havaya shehu bechinas gilui, and this is the Shem Havaya shehu bechinas gilui. Okay. So I'm going to explain this union over here. We mentioned before about Chochmah, Bina, V'das. Shem Havaya, as I said to you before, actually represents Chochmah, Bina, V'das, because Shem Havaya is Yud Kei Vov Kei. Yud is Chochmah, Kei is Bina, Vov stands for the 6 meters, and the last Kei stands for Malchus. Okay, which is Machshava Dibur Mais. This is Shem Havaya. Yud Kei Vov Kei. Now, where does Chochmah, Bina, and Midas come from? They come from the Etzem HaNefesh, from the Rotzen and the Oineg of the Nefesh. You with me? They come from the Rotzen and the Oineg of the Nefesh. What is the difference between the way it is in Chochmah and the way it is in Rotzen? The difference is that in Rotzen it is Behelim, it is contained internally, and in Chochmah it is Begili. And this is the principle they say that Havaya is Bechinas Gili. Even though the real creator, who is the creator? Hashem himself. Hashem himself is the creator, the real source of everything. Not the name of Hashem, but Hashem himself. But in order there should be a creation, a pe'ula, an action has to come through a gilui, through revelation, not from the etzem. Shem Havaya is the gilui of the etzem. And this is why we say that the creation is from Shem Havaya.
What do you mean by Gil of the What do you mean by Gil of the Shamavai Gil of the
Just like Seichel and Midas is a gilui of the Rotzen and Oineg HaNefesh.
Hashem is like revealed to himself what he's want to create. He's rotten what he wants.
If you call it Gilui, then how can be also bleak wool?
It is bleak wool because it's a gilui of the etzem. And the etzem is bleak wool, just like
As soon as we describe it as Gilui, anyhow appears to be limited Lagabe bleak wool.
well, this is the principle that when it's a gilui of the etzem, it is like the etzem itself, like the Oir HaShemesh is like the Shemesh itself. Even though it's only a gilui, but it's a gilui of the etzem. It's not a gilui that you reformat. You limit what you megala. You megala the whole etzem. And a gilui of the etzem is like the etzem, is also bleak wool. This is why the koiches hanefesh, chochma, bina, v'das, and all the midas are also referred to in Tanya as the etzem hanefesh. It's not really the etzem hanefesh, but these are the real koiches that are representative of nefesh. The reason a person understands. Let's put it in simple terms, right? Machshava dibur u'maisa, speech, let's say. In today's world, we can recreate speech artificially. You know what I mean? You can synthesize sounds. You can create ma'aser, action, artificially. But you cannot create seichel artificially. Because seichel is a nefesh in it. Only a nefesh, a living nefesh, has seichel. That is truly representative of nefesh. You cannot even recreate midas artificially. Ava, yira, chesed, gvura, you can't. These are nefesh qualities. Because they are truly bleak wool, they are representative of nefesh. So this is the Shem Havaya. Shem Havaya is a gilui of Atzem Holocaust. And the creation has to come through gilui. Because a pe'ula means an action, an effect, cannot come beside the etzem, it has to come beside hagilui.
Sechel and Midas is bli gvul. Sechel is like, it's coming from the nefesh because of this thing. The material world is not recreated, but how it bli gvul.
In comparison, of course, in comparison to Machshava Dibur Maisa, it's bli gvul. It's a truth. It's an essential truth. It's true by itself. What?
Machshava is also true by itself.
No. Machshava, I said Machshava is already an action, external action. Anything that you can put in Machshava is already a Metzias. Just like you can duplicate, I said, Maisa and speech. In a certain sense, you can duplicate Machshava. Like you have computers that can figure out, they can give you an answer to a question. But that's not Seichel. Seichel and Midas is in different category. That cannot be duplicated. It's Nefesh. It's an essential truth. A little bit, you got? Have Rahmanas on you. So tired. Huh? Ah. It's a pity because I wanted to have everybody with me so they can. You have to understand the words I'm saying that. This is Gilui. What is it a Gilui of? It's a Gilui of that which is higher than Gilui. Like the Seichel is a Gilui of the Rotz. What is in Rotzin? In Rotzin is not the way things are, but the way I want things, the way things should be. That cannot create an action. In order to create an action, you have to say the way things are. In other words, a gili of that rotz. Put this over here. This should be over here. Sure. Do you want me to go a little deeper? You ready for this? I don't want to lose everybody. See, and let me explain to you something. 2 times 2 equals to 4. Okay, here we have, if you think with me, you'll see all the levels. 2 times 2 equals to 4. We can teach a computer. A computer can also tell you 2 times 2 equals to 4. And a human being says 2 times 2 equals to 4. And we all understand that it means different to the computer. It means, when the computer says it means something different than when a human being says it. How do we understand? How can we define the difference? The computer is saying it because the fact of 2 and 2 is 4. The human being is saying it not because of the fact, because conceptually that's how it should be. 2 and 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Equals to 4. It's a concept. How do we test this concept? How do we test the difference? We test the difference like this. If you program the computer to say that 2 times 2 equals to 5, the computer is not going to protest. Doesn't make any difference. Okay, you want me to say 5? 5. If you tell a person, say, no, 2 times 2 equals to 5, he says, I don't know what you're talking about. It's not 5, it's 4. It's not just a question of what I say. It's a question of what it is. It doesn't fit. It has to fit. It has to make sense. The computer doesn't make sense. It's just giving you string out facts. not because they make sense. To a human being, it makes sense. This is already seichel. What is this sense that it makes sense? Now I'm going a step further. Making sense is the pshat that there is a concept that's called truth. This is already higher than the seichel itself. This is mitzad rotzen hanefesh. It has to be true. This is in etzem the person. This is not even in the seichel. It's not begilui. The union that there has to be truth is not in the begilui. This is in the etzem hanefesh. It's in the rotzen hanefesh. So when you say things have to be truth, you can't create anything from that. This is above. This is not an action. This is not a gilui of any kind. This is a reality itself. Where is it a gilui? When you say it has to make sense. Now, this is really on the seichel level. A gilui. What does it mean? Give me an example of its truth. 2 times 2 equals to 4. An example. It has to make sense. It has to fit. Then you take that seichel and you break it down into machshava, dibur, or ma'aser. Now, it's making sense is a level of seichel. That's translation of the truth concept into seichel. Then from that you come machshava, dibur, or ma'aser. How do you make sense? How do you make things fit? This is already on machshava, dibur, or ma'aser. This is already like the Shem Elikim aspect. But what are you putting into machshava, dibur, or ma'aser? That seichel, that makes sense. Got it? A little bit. You understand? This is how it goes up and up. And this is why we say that his habus has to be a Shem Havaya. Havaya is not Shem Haba. Why? Because Havaya is gilui. It has to be from Shem Havaya. But it cannot be directly from Shem Havaya. Because it's b'ligvul. It's a gilui b'ligvul. It has to be further broken down in the Shem Elikim, to be broken down into mitzias, into a structure. How do you start teaching children? Children, things have to make sense. There's no way. No way. Children, 2 plus 2 is 4. Oh, okay. Understand? This comes into the world. The same thing, lahavdil, in Torah. Children, there is nothing but Hashem. What do you mean? Oh, children, Hashem created the world. Gracious Borei Elokim v'Shamayim v'Zoretz. Now, hear what you say. Understand? That's bringing it down into a world level. Okay. Kol pe'ula b'hisgalus ha'peil dafke. Pe'ula has to be b'hisgalus ha'peil, only through the hisgalus, through the gili of the peil, not the peil himself, but the hisgalus ha'peil. Hainu Shem Havaya shu b'chinas gil. Shem Havaya is b'chinas gil. Why is Shem Havaya b'chinas gil? That's what we explained before. This is Chochma, Bina, V'das. Chochma, Bina, and Midas, and Malchus. Which is the gili of the peil. And this is what the Posuk says. Havaya melech, havaya moloch, havaya yimloi. In all three cases of melech, moloch, and yimloi, you know what the difference, right? Melech is current, is hoiver, moloch is past, and yimloi is future. Present and past and future. So what are we saying? The Bechinas Melech, Moloch, and Yimloich, Ovar, Hoive, Ve'osid, which is the past, present, future, Hu Bechinas is Chalkus Hazman, which denotes the aspect of the time and the distinction of time. Shemitzad Shem Elokim. This whole distinction of time of past, present, and future is only mitzat Shem Elokim, mitzat Shem Havaya. Or Shem Havaya, we say the Havaya Hoyo Heiva V'Yiki Echad. His past, present, and future is at once. There's no distinction of time. So how come if Havaya there's no distinction of time? Why do we say Havaya Molech Havaya Molech Havaya Melech Havaya Yimlich? Havaya there is no Melech and Molech and Yimlich. It's all at the same time. The distinction of time is in Hashem Elokim. That there are multiple times, multiple places. So the explanation is that even though the Hischalkus Azman is in Hashem Elokim, Mikol Mokoim, nevertheless, Havaya Moloch Umelech V'Yimlich. Still, the Moloch, Melech, Yimlich is actually attributable. You can actually attribute it to Havaya. Why? Da'akel hu mishem Havaya alidei Shem Elokim. Because even though the Nischalkus Azman is on Shem Elokim is only the means by which it gets divided. But what is in it, what creates Azman, this is Shem Havaya. That's why we say Havaya Moloch, Havaya Melech and Yimlich. Even though the discussion Azman is from Shem Elokim, but effectively what does Shem Elokim do? It reveals Havaya in Zman Umot. And it says that the same Havaya that was here yesterday, the same Havaya is here today, the same Havaya is going to be tomorrow. But the whole concept of yesterday, today, and tomorrow comes from Shem Elokim. The concept of that, the division between past, present, and future is from Shem Elokim. But what actually makes it be, what actually gives it presence, this is Shem Havaya. This is what we say in creation. We say Hashem Echad. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Right? And I'm sure you learned that Echad is Aleph Ches Dalet. What is Aleph Ches Dalet? Ches represents, Ches and Dal represent space, the entire expanse of space. And the expanse of space, as we know it, is up and down in all four directions. It's expanse. It's like a whole bunch of space, a lot, up and down in every direction. And for this we say that all of this space is actually Aleph. It's all one Nakuda. It's Hashem Havaya, it's all one Nakuda. There is no expanse of space. Expanse of space is already a creation. That's Hashem Elokim, we see multiple spaces. Hashem Havaya, it's all one space. But with Hashem Elokim, this Havaya is in every space that Hashem Elokim, that there is. Therefore, there is up and down in all directions. But this up and down from directions is all the same one. The same one who is here, the same one is here, the same one is here, the same one is everywhere. This is Havaya Melech, Havaya Molech, Havaya Yimlech. The division between Melech, Molech, and Yimlech is the Hashem Elokim. But this is only a conceptual division. The actual creation of that is for Hashem Havaya. And to give us a tangible handle on that concept, only a tangible, not that we don't have the name from Bli Gvul in our world, but to give you a tangible handle on this. It's the same thing like we said before about setting up tables, a classroom. We spoke about this many times. When you have 4 tables set up this way, and they set up in this order, you first bring this table, then bring this table, then this and that, you set it up. All of this together is not 4 different ideas, 4 different pieces. It's all one idea. Except in order to translate this idea in actual fact in the world, it has to be put together from 4 different tables.
But also now in our days,
But Mitzad the idea, it's all one thing. Right? Yamin, what do you say? No kidding. Excuse me?
From Hashem point of view, there's no changes. Only from our point of view. It's all good for the creation, for the recovery. Because we have time, so therefore there's a language of time.
Well, the point is that we should try to understand how it is from Hashem's point of view. If we should stay the way it's in our point of view, then we don't need to learn Chassidus. The idea is we should understand the way it is from Hashem's point of view. That way we are reconnecting the world with Hashem. That's the whole point of this struggle. of keeping you awake like this. Like I said, Oir Choizer. What's Oir Choizer? To try to understand the way it is in the source. The it is from Hashem's point of view. All right. I hope next time I will have both with me, not just one. Okay? Last time you were there. It's a different thing.